Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're embarking on an exploration that really challenges our very notions of what leadership is, what it could be, and maybe most importantly, how it's learned. Forget those traditional checklists, those predefined paths. We're stepping into a really special space today, one born from a profound and kind of yearning question. Imagine asking this. Can leadership be taught in a way that does not silence the body, that does not erase culture, that does not reduce truth to slides and schedules? That's a powerful longing, isn't it? A deep desire for something, more authentic, more human in how we approach leading ourselves and others. And this deep dive, this conversation we're about to have, it feels like an answer to that longing. But here's the crucial distinction, the core insight that really sets this apart. It arrives not as instruction, telling you exactly what to do, but as a profound invitation, an invitation to pause, to reflect, to truly engage your whole self. We're taking a quiet step, if you will, into the living heart of the study companion that accompanies the groundbreaking Global Leadership Insights 2030 book. Our mission today: to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight from this really unique source. We want to offer you a shortcut, sort of, to understanding this revolutionary approach to leadership. So get ready to have your ideas about leadership wonderfully, maybe fundamentally, challenged in ways you might not expect.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how the very start, the genesis of this companion, sets it apart from so much of what's out there in leadership education. It begins not with a set of problems to solve or skills to acquire, but with this philosophical inquiry. It challenges the very premises of conventional leadership development. This isn't about downloading more tools into your mental toolbox. It's about cultivating a different way of being a leader, a different way of relating to the world and to yourself. And that initial framing you mentioned, calling it invitation rather than instruction, that fundamentally shifts the power dynamic in learning. Instead of being, passive recipients of information where knowledge is just transferred, the listener, or I guess more accurately, the user of the companion, is invited into this active participatory process of discovery. It's less about being told what leadership is and much more about exploring what leadership could be, especially for you, the individual engaging with it.
Yeah, I find that shift in perspective immediately disarming, in the best possible way, actually. It removes that pressure, doesn't it? The pressure of needing to absorb some fixed body of knowledge, and instead it just opens up a space for personal exploration. So let's really unpack this then. When we talk about this study companion, it seems vital to clarify what it isn't first, and then dive into what it truly is, because it's definitely not your average workbook, is it?
Exactly. No, so source material is very explicit on this point. The study companion to Global Leadership Insights 2030 is not a workbook. And this distinction, it's paramount for understanding its unique value. A typical workbook, it often applies a linear progression, right? A series of exercises, maybe with predetermined right or wrong answers, a checklist to complete. It's about filling in blanks. It's about measurable outputs. It's often about doing rather than being. The companion, though, by profound contrast, is described as a practice space. And that's a profoundly different concept. Just imagine a practice space where ideas aren't just, abstract concepts floating around in your head, where they actually meet breath. Think about that phrase. It means the theoretical concepts are meant to be experienced physically, right there in your body, anchored by your breathing, your presence. It's a place where theory, which can often be so dry and detached in conventional learning, dissolves into touch, memory, gesture. Consider what that truly implies for a moment. This isn't about rote memorization or just processing information cognitively. It's about engaging your entire being. When theory dissolves into touch, it means you're embodying the principles. You're experiencing them viscerally. Like feeling the calm in your body when you truly listen, or maybe the tension when you try to force a solution. When it dissolves into memory, it's not just intellectual recall, but a deeper sort of intuitive knowing that has settled into your very being. And when it becomes gesture, leadership isn't just spoken words anymore. It becomes visible action, subtle nonverbal communication, an expression of your deepest, most authentic self. This sensory, embodied approach is truly radical in a field often dominated by purely cognitive models. The profound insight here, I think, is that true influence isn't found in your title or recognition, but in your ability to simply be fully present, creating an opening for others to step through.
That concept of ideas meeting breath and theory dissolving into touch, it immediately makes me think how much of our learning often separates the mind from the body. It really sounds like this approach is trying to heal that separation. So who exactly is this practice space for? Is it just for traditional students in a classroom setting, or does it reach beyond that?
Well, absolutely. It aims for a broader, much more inclusive audience, which really reflects its expansive vision for leadership. It's designed for facilitators, for educators, for students. Those are the traditional roles you might expect, right, in a learning context. But then it beautifully expands its reach. And for those who don't quite fit any of those roles but feel called to hold space, to question power, to reimagine what leadership can mean. And this is key, to hold space in leadership. What does that really mean? It means creating an environment, a kind of container where others feel safe to explore, to be vulnerable, to contribute their authentic selves without judgment or that need to perform. It implies deep listening, empathy, and a real willingness to step back sometimes and allow others to emerge and lead in their own way. It's a leadership of presence and facilitation rather than control or, top-down direction. Think of a community organizer creating a safe dialogue, or maybe a family member supporting a difficult conversation, or even just a friend listening deeply without jumping in with solutions. It's for anyone who feels that pull to guide, to inspire, to facilitate growth, even if they don't have a formal leadership title. It really acknowledges that leadership is a quality of relationship and presence, not just a position on an org chart. Structurally, the companion is built around 10 distinct modules, and each module, the text says, holds a seed. And this metaphor is incredibly rich, I think, and central to the companion's philosophy. A seed isn't a fully formed tree, obviously. It's pure potential. It implies organic growth, nurturing, and a unique outcome. And what grows from it, the source tells us, depends on you. This just reiterates the active, personal, and profoundly intimate role of the learner. You aren't just consuming information. You're the gardener, in a sense, cultivating the insights within yourself, making them truly your own. It's a very intimate and personal journey that the companion invites you onto, moving far beyond just didactic instruction. It acknowledges that while the companion provides these seeds, it's your unique context, your experiences, your reflections that truly bring them to life.
I love that idea of each module holding a seed. It really emphasizes the growth aspect, the unfolding, and that personalized journey you mentioned. Okay, so let's dig into these 10 C's then. These 10 modules that form the very backbone of this companion. They truly challenge conventional notions of leadership, don't they? They invite us to look at familiar concepts through a completely new, often quite poetic lens. How do they each contribute to this reimagined leadership?
Absolutely. Each module is a distinct inquiry, a different angle, yet they are deeply interconnected. They form a really holistic and transformative approach to leadership. Let's start with Module 1, Presence, not Position. Right away, this module redefines leadership. It strips away that conventional focus on status and titles. It states, leadership is not a spotlight, but a doorway. Just think about the implications of that metaphor for a second. A spotlight shines on one person, right? It emphasizes individual achievement, public recognition, often leading to a focus on outward performance. But a doorway is a point of transition. It's an opening for others, an invitation to step through. It's about access and opportunity, about creating pathways for collective movement, not just individual glorification. It really challenges the ego-driven aspect often associated with leadership. Here, the core idea is to begin not with status, but with stillness. This is such a radical shift from the typical pursuit of titles or power and prompts us to ask, what happens when leadership shows up without speaking? Now, this isn't about being literally silent in meetings all the time. It's about the profound impact of nonverbal cues, of being truly present in a room, of holding space with a kind of quiet authority, or simply by the quality of your attention and energy. It suggests that leadership can be transmitted through an inner state, a calm demeanor, or a focused gaze, not just through pronouncements or directives. The core takeaway here is that your truest leadership might reside not in what you do or say, but in simply being and creating that space. Think of a crisis meeting where a leader doesn't immediately jump to solutions, but first maybe takes a deep breath, listens really intently, and just holds the collective anxiety with a calm presence before speaking. That presence, without a single word, that's a powerful act of leadership right there. Then we move to Module 2, Listening Beyond Noise. In our, let's face it, hyper-connected, often superficial world, this module posits that in a loud world, listening becomes rebellion. It's a rebellious act because it runs counter to the prevailing culture of constant broadcasting, immediate response, and kind of shallow engagement. This goes way beyond just hearing words. It's about unpacking cultural silence. What does that mean? It means paying attention to what's not being said in a meeting, maybe the topics people avoid, or the voices that are historically marginalized within a group's dynamics. It delves into deep listening, which requires real patience, empathy, and a willingness to actually be changed by what you hear, not just waiting for your turn to speak. And it frames this as the ethics of truly hearing others and ourselves. It's an ethical imperative, really, because not listening is a form of dismissal, whereas truly hearing validates another's existence and experience. It fosters connection. And critically, it extends to listening to ourselves, too. To our inner wisdom, our intuition, which is so often drowned out by external clamor and all that internal chatter. The profound insight here is that true receptivity is a radical act of leadership that builds profound understanding and trust, far beyond mere comprehension.
Listening as a rebellion, that really resonates in this age of constant input, doesn't it? Sounds like it demands a profound inner quiet. Which leads us perfectly into the next module, I think. How does the companion connect our physical being, our bodies, to this idea of leadership?
Yeah, that's an excellent connection. That brings us straight to Module 3, Embodied Leadership. This module insists we return to a fundamental truth. The body remembers what the mind forgets. Our bodies hold so much trauma, wisdom, intuition, our deepest patterns of reaction. It urges us to return to the nervous system, to posture, to breath. These are fundamental anchors, aren't they? To our present moment, to our physiological state, which profoundly impacts how we lead and how others perceive our leadership. The core question here is poignant and really powerful. How do we lead when language fails? This speaks to those moments of high emotion, intense crisis, significant cultural barriers, or simply when words just fall short, when logic doesn't seem to suffice. In those instances, our posture, whether it's open or closed, confident or uncertain, our groundedness, our calm breath, or even a simple intentional gesture like, say, a reassuring hand on a shoulder, can convey leadership, empathy, reassurance in ways words simply cannot. It's about leveraging our full human capacity beyond just cognitive processing. The takeaway is that leadership isn't just a mental exercise. It's a deeply felt and expressed state of being, where your physical presence speaks volumes. Then Module 4. Intercultural navigation takes us beyond those often abstract notions of diversity and inclusion. Its core idea is crystal clear. Leadership is not global unless it listens locally. This is so crucial. True global leadership isn't about imposing some universal model or a one-size-fits-all solution. It's about deeply understanding and respecting local contexts, the nuances, the unspoken protocols, the diverse perspectives. It moves beyond culture as just a theoretical construct and brings it right into the room as lived tension and dialogue across difference. It acknowledges that cultural differences aren't just interesting facts to learn. They are dynamic forces that can create friction or sometimes profound insight when engaged with authentically. It's about navigating those tensions through genuine, sometimes courageous dialogue, rather than trying to erase them or pretend they don't exist. For instance, understanding local customs around decision-making or hierarchy, or even the nuances of personal space, these things can be more critical than any grand global strategy. The core insight. Truly effective global leadership requires radical local empathy and the willingness to learn from diverse lived experiences.
I can see how that challenges leaders to move beyond just a superficial understanding of cultural difference, to really engage with the complexities of identity and context. But leadership also demands an internal compass, doesn't it? Something to guide you. What does the companion offer there?
Indeed, it does. And that leads us directly to Module 5, Inner Compass. This module turns our gaze inward, asking a really foundational question. What shapes your choices when no one is watching? This gets right to the heart of integrity, values, intrinsic motivation. It's described as a deep dive into values, doubt, fear, and the invisible compass that guides us. This module recognizes that true leadership isn't just about external actions or, public performance. It's about the internal landscape that drives those actions. Our values are our North Star, right? Guiding our decisions even when we're alone. Our doubts, often seen as weaknesses, can actually be sources of humility and critical self-reflection. And even our fears, when we acknowledge and understand them, can inform our decisions, maybe prompting caution or inspiring courage. This invisible compass is our intuition, our conscience, our deepest sense of purpose that operates even when there's no audience, no public scrutiny. The key takeaway here is that authentic leadership emerges from a profound understanding of one's internal landscape, not just from external pressures or opportunities. Okay, then Module 6. Relational leadership shifts from the individual's inner world to the crucial dynamics between people. The powerful statement here is, power shifts in the presence of trust. In traditional models, power is often seen as this top-down hierarchical force, something to be wielded or exerted. But when trust is present, power becomes distributed, collaborative, generative. It transforms from a zero-sum game into a multiplier effect. This module explores co-leadership, where leadership is shared and fluid, not solely vested in one individual or title. It delves into creating feedback cultures, where open, honest, sometimes courageous communication is embraced as a pathway to growth, not just a dreaded performance review. And it revisits the art of holding space for others, underscoring its importance in fostering environments where trust can actually flourish and people can truly contribute their best ideas and their authentic selves. Consider a team where members freely offer constructive criticism because they genuinely trust each other's intentions. That allows projects to improve much faster. That's power shifting right there. The core insight is that trust fundamentally reshapes power dynamics, moving from control to collaboration and empowering collective action.
That reframing of power through trust, it feels incredibly liberating. It suggests a much more collaborative and human-centered way to lead. But leadership isn't always about collaboration, is it? Sometimes it calls for refusal or resistance. How does the companion address those, well, more challenging aspects?
You're absolutely right. It's not always comfortable or easy. That brings us to Module 7, Resistance and Responsibility. This one tackles the often uncomfortable ethical dimensions of leadership. It declares, quite boldly, to lead is also to refuse. This is a profoundly powerful statement. Leadership isn't just about saying yes to opportunities or passively going along with the status quo. It's about having the moral courage to say no. No to injustice, no to unethical practices, no to demands that compromise your values or the well-being of others. This module touches on activism, acknowledging the leader's role in advocating for positive change. It also touches on complicity, challenging leaders to recognize how their inaction or silence can inadvertently contribute to harm. It explores the edges where ethics and leadership meet, those gray areas where difficult decisions must be made, and where a leader's true character is really tested, often in lonely, maybe unpopular moments. For example, think of a leader refusing to compromise on environmental standards despite significant financial pressure, or perhaps standing up against discriminatory practices within their organization. The powerful takeaway here is that true leadership often demands the courage to stand against the current, to refuse what is harmful, and to take full responsibility for one's stance. Then Module 8. Legacy in Motion offers a really interesting counter-narrative to the idea of monumental grand legacies often associated with famous leaders. It reminds us not all legacies are loud. This challenges the notion that impact must be publicly celebrated or involve large-scale visible achievements. Instead, through intergenerational case stories, it explores how leadership endures through quiet, consistent acts of care, ritual, and resilience. These are narratives that show how wisdom, values, or even challenges are passed down and adapted across different generations within a family, a community, or an organization. They reveal these enduring forms of leadership. Think of indigenous wisdom passed down through storytelling, perhaps, or family traditions that build community over time. It's about those quiet acts of care for people, for community, for the earth. It's about rituals that connect generations and reinforce values. And it's about resilience, that quiet strength that allows traditions and wisdom to survive and thrive through adversity. These are the often invisible threads that truly carry leadership forward across time, shaping the future without needing grand pronouncements or statues. The key insight: the most enduring leadership impact is often found in the subtle, sustained acts of care and connection that quietly shape generations.
That's a beautiful thought, that legacy isn't always about grand monuments, but about the quieter, ongoing acts. Now, speaking of our modern world, how does this approach to leadership grapple with the omnipresent digital landscape we all inhabit?
Yes, a crucial question for today. And it brings us to Module 9, Digital Leadership and Boundaries. This module brings the ancient art of leadership right into our contemporary, hyper-connected reality. It posits that screens don't erase responsibility. And that's a critical reminder, isn't it? Just because we operate online, often behind avatars or in these virtual spaces, it doesn't absolve us of our ethical duties or the real-world impact of our actions. This module questions how we show up online, encouraging thoughtful presence rather than just performative displays or reactive engagement. It delves into something called digital embodiment, which refers to how our physical and emotional selves are affected by and expressed through our digital interactions. Like feeling drained after too many video calls, maybe, or the tension in your shoulders from doom scrolling. It also looks at how you convey leadership even through your digital presence, and importantly, it explores how to protect space in a hyper-connected world, setting intentional boundaries to prevent burnout, maintain focus, and assure genuine connection in an age of constant digital noise and distraction. The core insight here is that effective leadership in the digital age demands conscious presence, ethical awareness, and intentional boundary setting, even when everything is mediated by screens. And finally, Module 10. Leadership as ritual. This brings us full circle in a way. It connects modern leadership back to its deepest, most primal roots. Before every journey, there was a gesture. This speaks to those ancient, often unspoken acts of preparation, intention, blessing that precede significant undertakings. It's about recognizing a kind of sacredness in leadership, the need for intentionality and mindfulness in how we begin, how we sustain, and how we conclude our efforts. It's about more than just tasks and schedules. It's about infusing meaning into the acts of leading. We close by reconnecting through ritual, rhythm, and return. Rituals provide meaning and structure, right? They help us mark transitions and reinforce values. Rhythm reminds us of natural cycles, the need for ebb and flow, for balance in our efforts. And return suggests a homecoming to core principles, to community, to our authentic selves after the journey of leadership. It imbues leadership with a sense of reverence and timeless wisdom, inviting us to find meaning in the everyday acts of leading. The profound takeaway is that by consciously embracing ritual, rhythm, and intentional gestures, leaders can infuse their actions with deeper meaning and connect to these timeless sources of wisdom.
Wow, those modules really are seeds, aren't they? Each one just opens up a whole new way of thinking, not just about leadership, but about our own presence in the world. It's clearly not a passive experience at all. The thinking is only part of it, right? How does this companion actually guide you to engage with these ideas? What tools does it provide for this deep practice beyond just the intellectual concepts?
Right, and that's where the meticulous design of each module truly shines. It moves beyond mere theoretical discussion into a truly immersive, integrated experience. The companion provides a really comprehensive multimodal structure within each of its 10 modules. It's been meticulously crafted to facilitate not just intellectual understanding, but deep integration and embodied learning. So each module thoughtfully includes several components, building one upon the other. First, there's typically a poetic introduction. This immediately sets a tone that is intuitive and evocative, rather than purely analytical or instructional. It primes the learner, you could say, to engage with the material on a deeper, more emotional, perhaps even spiritual level, opening the mind to new possibilities. This initial evocative framing is then balanced by key theory and global context. This grounds the poetic concepts in intellectual understanding and broader relevance, offering a kind of scaffold for the insights. Then come reflective questions. And these are not designed for rote answers or quick quizzes, they're for profound personal introspection. They invite you to connect the material to your own experiences, your inner landscape, your unique perspectives, making the learning intensely personal. Crucially, each module also features a narrative case study. And these aren't abstract scenarios or dry business analyses. They are rich stories, often personal, drawn from diverse global contexts that bring the theoretical concepts to life through real-world dilemmas, human experiences, cultural nuances. This helps you see how these profound ideas play out in complex, often messy situations, fostering empathy and practical understanding. Following this, there's a group practice, which is vital. It signals that this learning is not meant to be solitary or isolated. It actively encourages communal engagement, dialogue, shared exploration, reinforcing that relational aspect of leadership and fostering a sense of collective learning. And then, vitally, an everyday transfer task. This is where the rubber truly meets the road, isn't it? It offers concrete, actionable ways to apply the insights in your daily life, bridging that gap between learning and practice. This could be something as simple as practicing deep listening in your next conversation, or maybe observing your own posture in a challenging meeting. Finally, each module concludes with a closing ritual. This provides a sense of completion, allows for integration of the learning, and honors the journey undertaken within that specific module, reinforcing the idea of leadership as a meaningful, almost sacred endeavor. The significance of this comprehensive multimodal approach is, well, it's immense. It acknowledges that people learn in different ways through reflection, storytelling, interaction, direct application. Each element contributes to a deeper, more embodied learning experience by engaging not just the cognitive mind, but also the emotional, the intuitive, and even the physical self. It moves beyond just knowing to feeling and doing. Furthermore, the companion isn't just for individual learners. It comes with a dedicated teacher's guide for facilitators. This guide is packed with practical support, including learning outcomes, session planning tools, and trauma-sensitive tips. This last point, trauma-sensitive tips, is particularly important, I think, and speaks volumes about the companion's mindful approach. It signifies a deep awareness of the diverse backgrounds and potential vulnerabilities of learners, ensuring that the learning environment created by facilitators is safe, inclusive, and genuinely supportive. It adds immense value by making the companion truly usable and impactful for those leading the learning journeys, ensuring that the space is not only transformative, but also deeply caring. And this brings us back to the core principle that underpins everything we've discussed today. This is not curriculum, it is conversation, it is permission. What does permission truly mean in this context of learning and leading? I think it's permission to be vulnerable, permission to not have all the answers, to explore uncertainty, to experiment, to make mistakes, and crucially, to learn from them without judgment. It's permission to bring your whole self, including your doubts, your fears, your emotions, into the learning space. It's permission to challenge assumptions, to question existing power structures, and to reimagine what leadership can truly be for you, rather than just conforming to predefined, often outdated models. It's a really empowering aspect that encourages authentic engagement rather than rote adherence or, performative expertise. It gives you the freedom to be a leader, not just to act like one.
That concept of permission, it truly redefines the learning environment, doesn't it? It's not about following some rigid path, but about exploring your own potential within a supportive framework, embracing vulnerability along the way. This leads us perfectly into the deeper philosophical currents running through this companion. Why this approach, right now? What problem is it trying to solve in the current leadership landscape?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? And it's a diagnosis that I think resonates deeply in our contemporary world. The companion arises from a very clear assessment of the current leadership landscape. It observes with keen insight that in a time of burnout and fragmentation, we don't need more leadership tools. Now, that's a stark kind of counterintuitive statement in a world obsessed with quick fixes, productivity hacks, endless skill acquisition programs. The argument here is that while tools can be helpful, sure, they often address symptoms rather than the root causes. When leaders are experiencing burnout from constant pressure, or when organizations are fragmented by siloed thinking and lack of connection, simply adding another checklist, another tech solution, or another technique isn't going to solve the underlying issues: disconnection, lack of meaning, overwhelming pressure, the erosion of trust. It's a bit like trying to fix a deep-seated structural issue with just a new coat of paint. So if not more tools, then what is needed? The companion powerfully states more leadership presence, more reflection, more pause, more listening across generations, languages, margins. These are not tools you acquire. They're qualities of being, practices of cultivation. Presence is about showing up fully, mindfully, authentically, not constantly distracted by the next task. Reflection is that deliberate space for introspection, for learning from experience, for integrating what's happened. Pause is the intentional interruption of frenetic activity to create space for clarity, for wisdom, for genuine connection, literally taking a breath before reacting. And listening across generations, languages, margins. That's about extending radical empathy and understanding to those often unheard or overlooked, bridging divides rather than deepening them. These are the profound needs of our time, addressing the very root of burnout and fragmentation. It's about building capacity within ourselves and our communities, not just adding external mechanisms. The vision behind the companion is deeply humanistic and holistic. It stems from the hope that we can still learn with our whole selves, not just our heads. What does whole selves mean in practice? Well, it means engaging your intellect, yes, absolutely, but also your emotions, your intuition, your body, your spirit, your lived experience, your unique cultural background. It's about integrating knowing, feeling, and doing. In practice, this could look like leadership training that incorporates things like mindfulness practices, maybe somatic exercises to understand stress responses, storytelling to build empathy, perhaps artistic expression to unlock new perspectives, and deep group dialogue rather than just abstract lectures and generic case studies. It's about bringing empathy and vulnerability into the learning process, recognizing that leadership is a deeply personal and relational journey. This vision also emphasizes the communal and mindful aspects, that we can gather again in circles, breathe before we speak. The circle is such a potent symbol, isn't it? Of equality, shared space, collective wisdom. It contrasts sharply with hierarchical classroom settings or traditional boardrooms. It suggests a more democratic and inclusive learning environment. And breathe before we speak, that speaks to intentionality, emotional regulation, deep listening, creating space for thoughtful, considered contribution rather than reactive, unexamined responses. It's a reminder to anchor ourselves, to ground our words in presence. And here's the crucial insight, the pedagogical heart of this entire approach, really a paradigm shift. Leadership is not taught, it is transmitted. This is a profound difference and one worth dwelling on for a moment. When something is taught, it often implies a transfer of discrete information, right? From one person who knows to another who doesn't know. It can be about facts, theories, techniques, often a one-way flow. It can feel like a recipient passively absorbing data. But when something is transmitted, however, it implies a more energetic, experiential, and relational exchange. It's about embodying the qualities of leadership, demonstrating presence, sharing wisdom through shared experience, through mentorship, through osmosis almost, where the learner implicitly absorbs the how as much as the what. Think of how a master artisan transmits their skill to an apprentice, not just through explicit instructions, but through shared work, observation, intuition. It's like transmitting a feeling, a spirit, a way of being, rather than simply a set of instructions. It's less about curriculum and more about communion, less about instruction and more about an inspiration that radiates from one person to another, a kind of contagious way of being in the world. It profoundly recognizes that true leadership emanates from who you are, your character, your presence, not just what you know or what title you hold. This helps prevent that pitfall of leaders who are technically proficient but may be emotionally disconnected or lacking in true presence.
Transmitted, not taught. That is such a powerful reframe. It moves beyond a purely intellectual process to something far more holistic and embodied. It makes so much sense, connecting right back to that practice space idea. So we have this incredible study companion, this unique practice space, but as you said, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's rooted in something even bigger, the main book, Global Leadership Insights 2030. How do these two pieces work together? It sounds like they have a really symbiotic relationship, almost like two sides of the same coin.
They absolutely do. Yes, the study companion is explicitly rooted in the main book, Global Leadership Insights 2030. Think of them as two parts of a greater whole. Distinct, yes, but profoundly complementary. Each one amplifies the other to create a richer, more integrated learning experience for you, the listener. The source material provides a beautiful set of parallels that illustrate this symbiotic relationship. They paint a really clear picture of their combined power. First, where the book lays the philosophical foundation, the companion brings it into your hands. So this means the book provides the conceptual bedrock, right? The deep thinking, the underlying principles, the global perspectives that set the stage. The companion then translates those often abstract ideas into tangible practices, exercises, reflections that you can directly engage with, making them personal, actionable, and truly lived. It's like the difference between studying architectural blueprints and actually getting your hands dirty laying the bricks. Another parallel highlights their interactive nature. Where the book speaks, the companion asks you to speak back. The book offers this rich tapestry of insights and perspectives, presenting its wisdom through diverse voices and formats. The companion, by contrast, creates an interactive space. It prompts you with challenging questions, invites your own thoughts, challenges you to articulate your understanding, and engage in dialogue, whether that's internally or with others. It's an active call and response, a dynamic conversation rather than just a monologue. And perhaps the most telling parallel, the one that really encapsulates their combined essence. Where the book is read, the companion is lived. The act of reading is primarily cognitive, isn't it? And often solitary. The act of living, however, is experiential, embodied, dynamic, and often relational. The companion transforms the intellectual engagement of reading into a lived practice. It encourages you to integrate the insights into your daily actions, your interactions, your very way of being, truly making them part of who you are and how you lead in the world. It moves the learning from your head down into your heart and hands. And it's worth delving a bit deeper into the main book itself, Global Leadership Insights 2030, because understanding its nature helps us appreciate the companion even more. The book, it says, was not written to explain leadership. It was written to feel it, to question it, to walk beside it. That immediately tells you it's not a dry academic text, not a typical textbook designed for mere explanation. Instead, it's an immersive experience, designed to evoke an emotional and intellectual response, inviting a personal journey of inquiry, rather than simply providing definitions or prescriptive answers. It encourages you to really wrestle with the complexities of leadership. Its scope is truly expansive, reflecting a commitment to global perspectives and the intricate dilemmas of our time. Across 26 chapters, it weaves through continents, dilemmas, identities. This means it covers a vast and diverse landscape of leadership challenges and contexts, moving far beyond just Western-centric or conventional business leadership models. For example, it includes profound insights from LGBTQIA+ leadership in Asia, exploring the unique challenges and triumphs of leading from marginalized identities in specific cultural contexts, to the ethics of technology, grappling with the profound moral implications of AI, data, digital transformation, to the silent gestures that carry legacy across generations, looking at how wisdom and influence are transmitted without words through subtle actions. This wide range demonstrates a real commitment to truly global and inclusive perspectives, acknowledging the universality and diversity of leadership in its many forms and expressions, and highlighting the complexities of modern global challenges. The very nature of the book is unique, too, reinforcing its philosophical depth. It is not a textbook, it's a threshold. A textbook usually aims to convey established knowledge, right? To sort of close the subject. But a threshold, that's a doorway, an entry point into a new way of seeing or being. It signifies a transition, an invitation to step into a different understanding, a place of potential. And this next part is incredibly powerful. Each chapter offers not answers, but mirrors. Instead of providing definitive solutions or pronouncements, the book pumps profound self-reflection. It holds up a mirror, inviting you to see yourself, your assumptions, your biases, your potential leadership qualities more clearly. It makes the learning process deeply personal and introspective. The format itself reinforces this approach, deliberately bypassing purely analytical engagement. Some pages are essays, some are letters, some are poems. This artistic and varied format speaks to different parts of the mind and heart. Essays provoke rigorous thought, intellectual inquiry. Letters foster a personal connection, making the content feel direct, intimate. And poems evoke feeling and intuition, speaking to the deeper, less logical parts of our understanding. It makes the content resonate on multiple levels: intellectual, emotional, spiritual. This blend ensures a rich and multifaceted engagement with the material. Despite this diversity in format and content, all of them ask the same quiet thing. What does it mean to lead with presence, not dominance, across cultures, across time, across silence? This is the central, unifying inquiry that weaves through every single chapter. Presence, not dominance. That reiterates the core theme we discussed in the companion. Across cultures demands that intercultural sensitivity, that profound local listening. Across time brings in the crucial dimension of legacy, intergenerational wisdom, foresight, extending our view beyond just the immediate. And across silence challenges us to listen to the unspoken, the marginalized voices, the profound wisdom found in stillness and unspoken cues. It's a really powerful compass for the entire book. The content is so rich with lived experience. The book holds voices from around the world, personal stories, cultural echoes, spiritual reflections. This humanizes the concept of leadership, doesn't it? Showing it not as some abstract theory, but as lived reality, shared struggle, diverse wisdom. And crucially, even within the book itself, it includes space for your own breath between the lines. This means even the physical layout of the book is designed for active engagement, for pause, for your own thoughts and reflections to interweave with the provided material. It makes it an interactive journey even in its written form. So if the companion is the practice, the tangible space where you actively do the work of leadership development, where theory is lived, then the book is the invocation, an invocation. It's a calling upon, an appeal, a prayer, maybe even a spell. It evokes, it inspires, it sets the stage. It creates the sacred space for the practice to unfold. It's the deep resonance that calls you into the journey. Together they form a truly powerful synergy. Ultimately, together they form a bridge between thinking and becoming, between reading and remembering, between you and a future yet unwritten. This beautifully summarizes their combined power and purpose, I think. They bridge that gap from abstract thought to lived reality, from passive consumption of information to active integration and embodiment, and from your current self to the leader you are becoming. They invite you to shape a future that is still fluid and open to your influence, providing not answers, but a really robust framework for authentic inquiry and action. It's an invitation to authorship over your own leadership journey, a truly empowering proposition.
The bridge to a future yet unwritten. That's a profoundly hopeful and empowering thought. It really reminds us that our leadership journey is truly an unfolding process, isn't it? So as we bring this deep dive towards a close, what's the ultimate message for you, our listener, for someone who might be considering engaging with this companion or perhaps just rethinking their approach to leadership based on what we've shared today?
Yeah, the final message is one of profound reassurance, I think, and empowering simplicity. It directly addresses any sense of overwhelm or pressure you might feel. The companion doesn't demand perfection. The source says, you don't need to be a perfect leader. You don't need to be a teacher at all. This immediately takes the pressure off, doesn't it? And invites authenticity over assumed expertise. It's about the willingness to engage rather than the mastery of a subject. You don't need a specific title or a prescribed role to begin this journey of conscious leadership. The simple yet profound requirement is this. You only need to show up with humility, with curiosity, with care. Let's just break those down quickly. Humility, that means acknowledging what you don't know, being open to learning from every experience and every person, recognizing that leadership is a continuous journey, not a destination you finally arrive at. It's about being teachable, even as you lead. Curiosity, that's the engine of growth, isn't it? The willingness to explore beyond what's obvious, to question assumptions, to delve deeper into complexities without needing immediate answers. It's about maintaining that beginner's mind. And care, that's the essential human element, the empathy and compassion for yourself and others that forms the bedrock of truly impactful leadership. It's the foundational ethic that ensures your leadership serves life, not just goals. Without care, leadership can become extractive or even harmful. And this approach is vital because, as the source tells us, the future will not be built by those who always knew. It will be built by those who are willing to ask again. End quote. This is a powerful, truly provocative thought for you to mull over long after this deep dive is finished. In a world that often rewards certainty, quick answers, the appearance of definitive knowledge, this challenges us to embrace ongoing inquiry, to remain in the questions. Why is asking again so crucial for future leadership? Well, because the challenges of tomorrow are complex, they're emergent, often unpredictable. Dogmatism just leads to stagnation, inflexibility, missed opportunities. Whereas a willingness to reevaluate, to learn from new information, to question assumptions, and to adapt, that's what fosters true innovation, resilience, and ethical engagement. It implies a leadership that is dynamic, adaptable, perpetually open to new insights and diverse perspectives, recognizing that the landscape is always shifting. It's about iterative learning and continuous evolution, making curiosity a foundational leadership quality. It's really about the wisdom of perpetual inquiry. So as you reflect on this unique perspective on leadership and learning, maybe consider a few things for yourself. How might you personally create your own practice space for leadership in your daily life? Perhaps allowing ideas to meet breath during a quiet moment, or letting theory dissolve into experience as you navigate a challenging conversation. Also, think about those 10 powerful modules we explored today: presence, listening, embodiment, intercultural navigation, inner compass, relational, resistance, legacy, digital, and ritual. Which of them resonates most profoundly with your current leadership challenges or aspirations? Why is that? What's the seed that you feel most called to cultivate within yourself right now? Furthermore, considering that profound idea that leadership is not taught, it is transmitted, what does this imply for how you learn about leadership moving forward? And how might this understanding shift the way you might guide or mentor others in their own leadership journeys? And finally, in what ways might the companion, with its emphasis on questions and mirrors rather than directives and answers, serve as a mirror for your own leadership journey, challenging you to ask profound questions of yourself rather than just seeking prepackaged solutions or external validations? What truths might it invite you to reflect upon?
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the study companion and the Global Leadership Insights 2030 book. It's been a really profound journey into a new way of seeing, learning, and practicing leadership. May your leadership echo in spaces yet unnamed, in the quiet acts, in the profound questions, and in the deep connections you foster. And may this companion be not your guidebook, perhaps, but your mirror, reflecting the leader you are truly meant to become.